Hey there, and welcome to the Dynamics Hotdish podcast, serving up stories and knowledge on Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. This is what's hot in Dynamics. You're now joining Merlin Schweiger, Liz McGlennon, and Ashley Steiner.
I just had this question come up last week. I was talking with somebody who used to be in Dynamics, got out, was thinking to come back in. And his question was, should I bother with the certifications? Like, how important are the certifications?
You know, I was just thinking about that too. Sorry to Merlin, but
No,
like,
cool.
I was wondering like how often you should get them, I guess. So I don't know if you have an answer.
I'll be honest, I laughed at him because personally, having taken the certifications over the years, I feel like they're a joke. And often I feel like the questions and the product barely seem connected to each other. So I've rarely understood the point. But he brought up a good point that since he was out of the space for a while, taking the certification forced him to go through some of the learning materials, which forced him to sort of get reacquainted with where things are at today. So I don't know.
So the format has changed. I also don't know like how long ago it was that you took the test, but like within the last couple of years, or the certification, within the last couple of years, they've actually changed the entire format. It's not so much like memorize. Like that's how I felt like the ones where like in 2013, even 2015, I think, where like you memorize the question and you memorize the answer the way that Microsoft would want you to. But now it's a lot more like application. When I took it, it was like, there's a case study. The questions are like more realistic to how you would actually work with the system. And if you don't study, you're not going to pass. I mean, somebody, I think in our roles, where we've been in this for so long, we might be fine, but I still studied. I have 2 of them right now from 2 years ago in the new format. And I still studied because I was a little panicked about the new format, but it's a lot more applicable, I would say, to the way that you work. So not to say that like that counterpoints are they like necessary, but I will say at least like the test is more, or the certification is more like what you do versus memorizing.
Well, that's good because I feel like they used to be a bunch of trick questions based off of documentation written by somebody who clearly had never opened the application in their entire lives.
My favorite old questions are ones like, what's the required field on this form? Or what color is this thing in that like service activity scheduler? Like stuff like that was so stupid.
My favorite was like, would you find this in like the administrative or the business management section? And it's like, I don't know, I click around until I find it. So.
Right. And clearly having memorized all of those things means that you know everything that there is to know about the application, right?
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair question though. Like, how often should you get them? I know that like in the consultant world, people have to get them more often, but as an admin, like nobody's pressuring me to get them. It's more of like a FOMO thing for me. Like, I feel like I'm missing out because people are posting badges and things like that on their profile. And that was so new ago when I took mine that like, I don't want to say stupid, but stupid posting it because like it wasn't a thing back then. So now it's like, I want to retake it so that I can be like everyone else.
Well, I guess enjoy taking those tests so that you can follow the crowd. Maybe I should take one. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give you updates on it, like let you know how it goes. See if you guys are interested in taking it.
Perhaps. Maybe after you post the badge, then I'll think that I need the badge so that I can look as cool as you. It'll just be a whole thing.
I'm not gonna succumb to peer pressure. I'll only take it if I need to take it. So far, no one's asked me to, so.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a pressure you put on yourself more than anything.
Probably. So our topic today, actual topic today, not certifications, is events and attending events. And this is brought on specifically because of DynamicsCon, which is coming up in a couple of months. But why? Why events? What sorts of events? Ashley, I'm going to have you start because I can just see that you are bursting with ideas.
I don't know about that. I really enjoy going to events. Liz and I attended our first Dynamics event together in 2012. Not to date ourselves, but also we've been on this journey a long time with each other. So So I've always attended events, as many as I can. A lot of them you used to have to pay for, but I would say what's really cool and what a good thing that came out of COVID, if there was anything good in our space, was that there's so much more free online content now, and DynamicsCon is one of those. You just have the access to this information, and the sessions is just so much easier now, which I would say is a benefit.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify DynamicsCon is in the middle of March, which will just be about a month from when this podcast airs. So,
Good point.
yeah.
Yeah, so of all of the events that you've gone to in the past, I'm just sort of vaguely curious now, what do you feel were the greatest benefits from those events? Like, was it technical knowledge? Was it networking with experts? Was it the swag? That was one of my favorite parts. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say it's like a couple different things, and it also depends on the event that you're going to. So back in the days of like Convergence, it was really nice to hear from like actual Microsoft and like what was coming. And I would always attend those product sessions, like even if it didn't pertain to me, in theory, because it might eventually touch what I was doing. So, but at more community-driven events, kind of like DynamicsCon, things that were in person before DynamicsCon was around, I would always go with like a list. As an admin, I would say, hey, these are the problems that I'm having in my environment today. And this event will not be successful if I don't find a solution or an answer or possibilities to fix this problem. And I say problem so loosely because it could just be like, hey, this is what I want to do and how do I accomplish it? So whether that's attending a session or like networking with somebody in a booth or something like that, that was how I measured success in the past. Now I would say with this online content, it's just making sure that I can walk away with 1, 2, 3 things that I can bring new to my system or to my users. And so I'd say it's more about the content, more so than ever.
I suppose that makes sense. It's a little bit more difficult to network in a virtual event. I will point out that DynamicsCon last year sent a box of swag. I don't know if they're doing that again this year. But, you can sign up and get a box.
Especially with the whole theme, right? Like it's like Comic-Con, DynamicsCon. Like I like the whole direction that they're taking with it. It just seems like really cool to me that it's not just like tech focused. It also brings out the nerd in all of us, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to think for somebody who's thinking, well, should I attend an event? Like how would someone know if an event is worth their time? So like, I know most of them tend to post their sessions out, and you can kind of scroll through and read the descriptions and be like, well, probably this session would be of interest to me. Do you have either of you have any suggestions for like how somebody would decide which sessions to go to or even which events to attend?
I can go first. So I would say it's more about like what your objective is. So like I would say that my objectives of attending events have changed. So I would find the events that fit the need of what I was looking for. So, in-person events, like it was easier, like you said, to network and kind of build that network, which is really awesome. Now here, 11 years later, I have a network. So I don't feel like I'm missing out on that as much by not attending these in-person events because I keep up with those people throughout the year. And if I have a question, I know that I can come, to one of you, or I can go to like Ed for all my Power Automate questions and things like that. Hopefully he's listening. But you know what I'm saying? So it's like you have this network now that you've built. So having these online events, you can focus more on like, where do you want your learning and education to go? And like with the like broadening of the systems and like how big the Power Platform is now, you really just need a way to absorb that content as quickly as possible, and traveling to an event may not be the best way to do it anymore. I don't know. It's hard to imagine traveling and going to like 10,000 people events anymore.
Right? Yeah, like, oh, we're all just going to get in a giant indoor building for a while.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is the right approach, but I tend to like go to the sessions where I know the speakers are really good. Like they're people that I've seen speak in the past and they always have high quality, well-prepared content. Now I know that kind of contradicts like DynamicsCon's goal of like getting 25% of the speakers as new presenters, which is a great thing. Like it's always great to get new people presenting and sharing their thoughts and ideas, but that's always been a tendency that I have, is to go to the people that I know always have great content.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, but that would be, again, that's sort of difficult if you're not already in the space, sort of like Ashley with her networking. Like, I don't know, thinking about the networks built through events, I feel like this podcast is sort of one of them. Like, really, I only got to know Ashley through seeing each other at events and hanging out. And so I guess I'm not sure. I don't know if either of you tried to go to the virtual summit that happened a while ago. I did spend a little bit of time in that, and like they were trying to do some socialization stuff with like essentially chat rooms. Like every booth had a chat room, and then there were all these like sort of generic chat rooms, but nobody was really chatting it there except for vendors trying to drive people to their booths to be leads, and that's kind of disappointing. So I guess I didn't attend DynamicsCon last year. Did they have any sort of like socialization attempts, or is it just content sessions?
You know, I wish I remembered because I did attend last year. Unfortunately, I was moving at the same time. I was closing on a house. So I don't remember off the top of my head, like how they did the networking. I don't know, Liz, if you attended or
I
if you
didn't. No, I was working too much last fall and they had it. I was just going to look and see if they have on their schedule. I will say, I agree. Like I went to Summit in the fall and I attended sessions, but I didn't try to do like the chat, like go to the booth thing. Like virtual networking is just, I don't know, it doesn't really replicate real life networking. But I wanted to bring up like Scottish Summit, which is like the end of February, and their trivia event where if you aren't going with like your company, you can participate in like Microsoft trivia, like pub trivia, and be put on a team. And so I feel like that's a free online event that is working in kind of the social aspect in a virtual format of like a trivia night. And I'm assuming that you would get to chat and like meet different people from joining a team randomly, and people from probably all over the world.
Yeah, I think that's a really unique way to kind of create that organic. It's hard to recreate organic networking that it just happens at an in-person event, right? Like you're walking down the hall, you see somebody or you were in the same session and you say, hey, what did you learn? Like, what did you take away? I mean, it's really hard to recreate that. So like having something like that trivia is really intriguing, I think, to anybody, especially if you're just getting new into the space. Don't be scared. We were all there at one point. We were all that new person sitting in the back of the conference room, like terrified of like everyone else there. I'll say the DynamicsCon, one thing that they do really well is Q&A with the speakers. So the speakers are constantly there. Everything is pre-recorded. But what's really awesome about it is that the speakers are there like answering your questions, engaging with you throughout the entire session, so that if you do have a question on something, they're immediately right there. And I had a couple of questions last year that, I mean, the speakers were awesome and followed up and or just answered it right there if they had an answer. It was pretty cool.
That's actually kind of a clever idea. If you pre-record the session, but then you still have the presenters like present during the session, it gives the viewers more immediate feedback from the presenter than if they were presenting live and then ignoring all of the questions and then waiting until the last 3 minutes and then trying to answer them all really fast. So yeah, that's I feel like that'd be a benefit.
Yeah, I think that's really unique, but I also think it kind of goes back to your question of like, how do people that are new to the space find these things? I mean, I found DynamicsCon because I know the people that are running it. You know, I used to work with them. Liz, I think Scottish Summit, you have, you know, connections over in Europe that, you know, introduced you to that. So, I think it really raises like that question of like when you're new. And I try to think back in 2012 when we went to that first event. I mean, we went because we worked in an IT company that also attended the event. So what I've heard of it outside of that, I don't know. I don't know if either of you have a good answer to that, but like, how do people find out about these events and get involved in them?
I'd say like follow people on social media and pay attention to like blogs and podcasts, and they're going to be talking about this stuff. I don't know what other advice to have other than, yeah, like basically network social, like online, like through social media, and watch for information on upcoming things. And yeah, I didn't know about Scottish Summit until just a few months ago, because it's, you know, more of an international European event than a US focused event.
And I'd also
Right.
say don't be scared to like network with people on social now that we're not in an in-person networking kind of way. Not that that's like goes in line with events, but I think it does go along with it because you can't talk to these people in person anymore. So don't be afraid to like, I know I've reached out to a lot of people and like on LinkedIn or on Twitter and asked questions because I was like, I'm not going to have a chance to just grab you in the hallway in a couple months. So
It's true. Yeah,
Yeah, that is true.
I want to point out like how awesome it is that DynamicsCon and Scottish Summit and other events are free, because we're so used to having to pay a lot for the registration fee and to travel. So it's pretty awesome that we have access to all these presenters and content virtually for free, when, you know, that might have been a barrier for people in the past. Also, like, I think it widens the community where, you know, it's really can be global and international versus geography based.
I agree. And I wonder, I know DynamicsCon kind of was built out of the Dynamics user group, which has been around since 1995, but they were solely in the nav space, and they hadn't expanded out into the other Dynamics 365 and Power Platform products. So I just wonder if this whole idea kind of became available or like came up because there was not a lot of free online content in a event fashion. Because like you said, it was all in. I mean, I don't even know if you could have attended an online event, 2 years ago. It was very few.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
really think it was much of a thing.
I don't think it was either.
It's weird to think because
Yeah.
I mean everything's online and virtual now. So
You know,
It's true.
I know. I guess it makes me wonder. Like, I assume that eventually, someday, some events will go back to being in person. Like Microsoft presumably will start having like their BizApp Summit or Inspire and Engage and I don't know the other verbs that they're using for event names. I assume that they'll have at least some of those back in person. But I guess
Eventually.
I mean that's going to be a hard transition to make, right? Because as you point out, you can have the free online event where people can come to your sessions, or you charge them like $1,000, $2,000 for registration, and then they pay for airfare, and then they pay for hotel space, and all of that to fly to somewhere and have an event. I guess I wonder if it's going to be difficult for that business model to like become a thing again.
Well, I don't think Microsoft is relying on the revenue from their events, right? Like, it's different than maybe some other organizations where that is kind of their primary focus. I don't think Microsoft would ever stop doing in-person events. Like, I think they'll start them again. I think there's always going to be people that miss the in-person too, or like want to travel or want to just get away from like everyday work stuff, where I think they'll still be well attended. It might not be as big as it used to or as popular as it used to, or it might take a while for people to shift back, but I think it will to a degree.
I also think it's hard, or like it's a good question, but it's hard to consider like if this online content will always be free. Because I know like when I started attending events in 2012, they weren't like, I don't remember an $1,000 price tag. Like it was a much easier sell to my company, that kind of thing. So it's, you just wonder like how long, because it's new to the market, I would say all these events, like, is it always going to be free? I don't know. People might be listening to this podcast in a year and being like, you guys had free online content?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I don't really know how long the free will last for, if it'll be forever or not. I think the reason they're making them free right now is that historically online events have been so terrible. And so I don't think because of that stigma, like people aren't going to pay 500,000 bucks, whatever, or pay anything to attend an online event until they know that it's quality and it's worth their time.
Right. And I think it's hard. It's easy, or it's harder to unplug too when you're at an online event. Like I noticed that with DynamicsCon, I was only able to attend one of the 2 days last year. It's 3 days this spring. But one of the, like that day, like everyone, you can't turn off the email. Like those emails still come in. You can't help but look at them. Everything is, of course, urgent for everybody. And so you really have to just step away from like, you almost have to do it on your personal computer, put away your, turn off your notifications in order to really get that same experience that you did in person. Because you can really shut out the work back home when you're at an in-person event. And I know I did, and I probably did it too well when I was
I
at an
totally
in-person
agree.
event.
I had the issue with Summit last fall. Like I had every intention to going to a lot more sessions, and then work interrupted, my day. And then I knew they were all recorded, and so I could watch them later. And so when you know that, it's really easy to just brush them off and be like, I'll watch that later. But you really don't. You don't really go back and watch as many as you plan to.
Yeah.
Did you go back
and
watch any?
I did. I watched some of the ones on Power
okay.
Automate. Yeah.
All right, that's
But
good.
I didn't watch as many as I had like originally starred as like things I was interested in.
Yeah, and I think that when you're in person, like at those events, like you could just, I know that I shut off work completely and was like, nope, I'm gone. Like even though I'm technically working, I'm, not available this week. And so it's a lot harder to do when you're virtual. So I think that also might feed into the like, how soon will in-person events come back? Some people just might want to attend in person because they can actually focus on the content.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good tip, especially in the era of virtual events. To get the most out of it, you actually have to be listening and paying attention. You can't be multitasking, which is basically just ignoring everything except whatever you're doing. Or you're not gonna get the content out of it, and you're gonna get to the end and be like, oh yeah, no, I definitely learned everything I needed to know about that Power Automate session. And then you'll get into that exact situation in Power Automate 2 days later and realize that you have no idea what they were talking about.
Yeah. And I still take notes. Like, I don't know if people do that when they attend sessions. I did that, in person. I would take my computer, but even online, at these virtual events, I'll have like one note up in another window. I have 3 screens in front of me. I don't know if other people have that kind of scenario. But you'll have one note up and you'll just take notes. And I feel like that helps me pay attention and not focus on the emails and things like that. It's the breaks. Like, I wish they just didn't have breaks for the online events. I wish that they just like rolled one thing after another, because like it's during that break when you're checking your email that you're like, oh,
Well,
I
you
can skip one
You
or
can't
two.
expect someone to sit all day without a break.
They
Like
can give
people
their own-
need to.
Well, we're adults, right? You take your own breaks. That's
But
how
what
we-
Sure, but-
what if you don't
I
want to
was
miss
just-
content though?
I know, I was just teasing. Like, I was trying to be fun. It's like the breaks that are the downfall, but I understand like completely.
Just
I've got
self-control.
it.
Don't check that email.
Right. Either don't take the breaks, or they should just not have breaks and encourage everyone to take the meeting from their kitchen 2 feet from the bathroom, so that you can always hear the content no matter where you have to be.
So it sounds like a great solution.
Right. Seems perfect. Other thoughts on virtual events? Liz, you were about to say
Yeah,
something.
I wanted to talk about kind of the way DynamicsCon selects its presenters, because I think the whole voting
Oh, yeah.
is a different take on it. Like, I've not really seen that done at other events. I just think that's interesting. And I get like that they're trying to have content that's the most relevant to the community. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it, and if you feel like it's a good approach or if there's cons to it. What do you think?
Is that a play on word with the cons to it?
It wasn't, no.
So I'll say I think it's really intriguing because you're the one attending the event, right? So it's really hard to like attend an event if there's like some secret committee picking the sessions, and then the same people end up like speaking several times, and they have the same sessions, and so it's really I think it's really cool as an attendee. Obviously, Liz, Merlin, and I, we all speak at these events too. So I think just the transparency for me was really cool as well. Seeing what events or what sessions were like voted top and saying, oh, is that something that would be applicable to me? And do I want to attend this event if it's going to be sessions that won't apply to me? That part of it was really cool too. So you kind of see the direction that it's going, or do I need to find a different event? I don't know. I think DynamicsCon does a great job of that. Just the transparency.
I felt like a con was that I could see that no one was voting for my event, and so then that hurt my personal feelings. But I do think overall, in terms of like strengthening the community and providing content that's actually relevant and valuable to people, I think letting people vote is obviously the right answer. Just clearly means that I missed where the pulse is on my event. So
Yeah, I was gonna say you just didn't pick a good
I just
topic.
picked a poor topic. I picked a topic that nobody cared about, and
That,
it's good to know.
Well,
that
is-
or
nobody
maybe
cares
you're
about.
not popular, Merlin.
That too.
We need to promote Merlin more so people
I
know who
know.
he is.
I know.
I was like, is it better that you know, I guess, ahead of time, like to not have it, or like to show up to a room and have two people there? Because I think that's like awful too when you do an event and there's only like two people in your room or in your session. So
I think
not
that would
to
be
say-
worse.
yeah.
Yeah. Because you spend all this time prepping and you're ready to present, and then like clearly it's just not a topic that group of people are that interested in, or it's at the same time as other topics and it's just not their top priority. Like I know that happens where like frequently you have two things you want to go to, but you have to pick between the two.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One of the cool things that DynamicsCon was going to do as well is that if your session wasn't picked, they were going to like release it as additional online content later. So for those sessions that didn't get picked, it's not that it's not important or we'll never get to it. It's stuff that they'll include into their community later as like a webinar. I guess I'm not sure how they're going to do it. They weren't really super clear. But I think that that's really cool of like, it's going to be a scheduled webinar or just available at any time on demand. Because you know, everything that people submit is great information. It's not like we don't want to know about anything. It's just that with that limited time, you know, what are your top priorities?
Sure.
That's really awesome. I didn't know they were planning to do that. I knew they were recording the sessions to replay them in like Europe and Asia, but that's awesome that they're thinking of incorporating non-selected sessions in a different format.
Yeah. Hopefully I didn't misread that and then promoting like false information. That's what I thought I read.
No, I feel like I read the same too, although I might have to take some action to like request that I be able to do a webinar. for
Yeah.
example.
That would make sense.
I think really what this means, I'm pretty sure that somebody else submitted a session for my topic and their session description was just better than mine. So,
Or their picture was better.
or their picture was better. That's not difficult. I mean, my picture obviously had me in it, which is already a dig against it.
I don't think we would record this with cameras, Merlin, if we thought that. Or maybe we just cover yours up and you don't know.
It's probably true. Just block me out with a black box when you post the recording. Any other final thoughts? We're coming up on time.
I would just say network. I mean, try to network even virtually. This wouldn't have started, this podcast wouldn't have started without things like events. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are today without building that network that we have. And Liz and I know you and I are lucky because we worked together at our first job that had Dynamics. So that is unique, I would say. But I mean, everybody else that I talked to and just building that network, that's one thing that you do miss from an in-person event.
Yeah, but actually I think events helped us maintain our friendship and like stay in touch, because we knew at like a minimum, if we went a whole year without talking, we'd still see each other at the event or events that year.
Yeah, I remember like texting and being like, hey, are you going? And,
Yeah.
and organizing and planning. So without events, we wouldn't be here for sure.
Yep. So hopefully they'll come back to in person. It's a lot easier to meet that person who asked that question that's also relevant to your company when they're not just like whatever they typed in as their name in a chat room in a virtual event. But hopefully there are ways to still be able to network. Look people up on Twitter or something. Say, hey, are you the person who asked that question? Because I want to know more. I do think that's important.
And the virtual events are improving, like DynamicsCon, Scottish Summit. Like they're adapting, and so I think they are becoming better. It's just kind of like your point, Merlin, that networking, remembering who someone is, that part of it. You'd have to be a little bit more intentional about that in a virtual format.
Yeah. But anyway, I think we should call it there. And thanks everyone for joining. Definitely look for events, including Scottish Summit and including DynamicsCon.
And attend our session. Shameless
Right.
plug.
Shameless plug. Attend our session. It'll be very interesting. I'm going to sneak into their session because I didn't get my own session, but that's okay.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks. That's it.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Dynamics Hotdish podcast. For additional content and previous episodes, check out our website at dynamicshotdish.com, follow us on Twitter at Dynamics Hotdish, and subscribe to our podcast for notifications. Thanks. See you next time.